All right, you lot, don't forget to give us a follow on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And while you're at it, give us a 5-star rating. Trust me, it really does help us out.
We ended up with quite a short Grand Prix, about 40 minutes in length. Now, obviously, I think we just about got to 50% race distance, just over like 52 or something like that, due to all the rain. And eventually we got going, and that was calm. But I think everyone's understanding was that if we did 50% of the laps, 50% of the points would be handed out. And that obviously had a different permutation in terms of the championship than full points. If it had been full points, then Verstappen basically winning and Leclerc coming third would have given them the championship, whereas that wouldn't have been the case with 50% points because there wasn't the 7 points that Max needed. So obviously we all kind of went into the final few laps being like, well, if Perez overtakes Leclerc, Verstappen still needs fastest lap. He's not coming in.
Which he didn't have.
And he didn't have it at the time.
Yeah.
I think Guan Yu Zhou had it or something ridiculous. So, you know, it was, we all kind of thought, yeah, cool, let's go into Austin. It'll be a formality. And then obviously Leclerc makes a mistake into the final corner, gets 5-second penalty, loses out to Sergio Perez and finishes third. And then sort of the FIA and everyone were like, oh yeah, by the way, that means Max won the championship, everyone.
Well, so my understanding, Pete, is that, you know, as long as the race finishes under checker and that clock times out, it doesn't matter how many laps you do, you get 100% points, which is ridiculous, surely.
Weird. And the thing is, we don't know anything until like after the race is done. Then we start learning these rules.
But no one knew. Sky Sports didn't know this.
This is what I was about to say. Like, if you're thinking we're just complaining about this as like being ignorant, like the teams didn't even know this was a thing.
Yeah.
Journalists at the track were like bemused because they just thought that the FIA had made some sort of mistake or whatever.
Look how ridiculous this rule is.
Yeah.
You can do 30 laps of racing.
Yeah.
And it starts to rain and it ends the race.
Yeah.
There's no checkered flag. You get half points. But if you do 2 laps and you get a checkered flag, you get 4 points.
Yeah.
It's absurd.
Their rules don't make sense. To the point where the teams that are participating in this sport, like, they don't even know. They're like, what are you on about? Why does this rule even exist?
And we thought like that. It's even worse because of what happened at Spa last year. You would think that this whole ruling around how many points are given would be gone over with like a fine tooth comb. But like clearly not. Clearly these FIA regulations. We were chatting about this before. Like we started recording. Like these regulations just they seem. There's issues. There's clear issues there.
For sure.
It's crazy because I've worked in the regulation business before. I've drafted regulations, and the amount of stipulations that you put in place for every type of scenario to come in place. Your lawyers are going through it with a fine tooth comb. It'll have every type of scenario. This mic alone has pages and pages of legislation of what you're allowed to do with a mic. And the FIA regulations, when you read it, it's just like someone just said, "That can't be asked." Just like,
this is the thing. So how many like people would this need to go through before?
Honestly.
It has to go through tons of people. It has to go through boards. It has to go through tons of lawyers to check it, to even put that legislation in place or put that regulation in place. With this, it's kind of like they're not looking through the gaps to say, okay, if X happens, this is what we do. If Y happens, this is what we do. And then every single time a new scenario happens, there seems to be confusion. And it shouldn't be like that with any sport. I don't think you're deciding who the winner of a football match is 2 days later, 3 days later.
No.
You know what happens. So, and most people know the rules. It's quite clear and obvious. And for people that watch the sport, it's entertainment, right? We should know the rules.
Well, like, I mean, chatting to producer Lewis earlier, who's like, you know, this sport just makes up the rules as it goes along. Like, literally.
That's exactly how it is.
And like, I think we're used to it as F1 fans, right? Because this is not an isolated incident. There were numerous things in this race. Like, I mean, honestly, I think this podcast could easily go for like another 4 hours. We're going to try and keep it concise because you had another truck on track.
Oh God.
Which is a whole nother, like we've had that numerous times. It feels like over recent years, and we know the penalty you can pay for that in terms of your life. And we saw that in 2014.
Definitely.
And it just feels like, I don't know, these new regulations I think have done, from a sporting point of view, I think they've done a pretty good job. But who's holding the FIA accountable? Because I just feel like this is not good enough. And every week there's stuff outside of racing. We were talking about this earlier.
Yeah.
Like we're always talking about shit outside of racing. And it's kind of like we talk about it because this is what's front and center in the sport right now. But we don't want to be talking about this stuff.
Yeah.
Formula One has to make a decision whether they're going to continue with FIA regulating their sport.
Yeah.
Because FIA is not Formula One. So why are they the headline every weekend when there's a race? That shouldn't be the case.
Do you think that could happen though? Like, is that
We've heard murmurs that Formula One might take it into their own hands and so on, but who knows what they can do if they've got the right people in place.
because F1 is like a closed shop, right? That is the entity. It's not like in, say, football. If you leave UEFA, then you don't get Champions League. You don't get like certain. I feel like F1 could do it on their own if they want. I mean, I didn't even expect to be talking about this, but I think you raise a good point.
Yeah.
It's a problem because you're expecting the FIA to check their own homework. Nobody's checking on them.
Yeah.
So when they do make a mistake,
That's the thing. Yeah.
There's just no accountability.
Where's the accountability?
And the truth is, why are we surprised? We actually shouldn't be surprised by this, especially the way championships have been decided or race points, penalties, whatever the case may be. I mean, even this cost cap thing. And, there's so many things that we discuss, as you said, that we're talking more about off-track stuff than we are on-field. And that's not right. We shouldn't be having that in Formula One. And the FIA just needs to go. It definitely needs to go. We need to have something else that runs Formula One because these people are not up to it. Whoever they are, they're just not up to it. They're not fit.
A championship can't be decided like this. Or even for the team, I feel sorry for Red Bull. You're finding out during an interview with Johnny Herbert.
It's strange.
Last year's championship, right? As controversial as it is and everything else, it's like nobody knew what was going on. Again, nobody knew the rules. No one knew what was going on. Max has 2 titles where we're like, there's either an asterisk or a caveat or there's always been something weird.
It's 2 in a row now.
2 in a row.
Really out of his control, and it's just shit for him.
Absolutely,
I feel like the key thing with the FIA and the rules or the situations they get themselves into is they decide in the moment what they're doing. They don't prepare for anything. Yeah. Something has to happen for them to go, boom. You don't get a situation like today
reactive
where
instead of proactive.
It's so reactive.
Yeah.
It's so reactive. An incident has to happen for a rule to be made.
Yeah.
They can't make a rule without something happening beforehand.
People have to remember, Perez was chasing Leclerc for 40 minutes. What were you doing in that 40 minutes?
Yeah.
For you not to know the permanentations if Perez overtook this guy.
Crofty had no idea. He was talking about 50% points being rolled out.
They were rolling out the graphics with all the different splits. There was no permutation listed there that, by the way, if we end the race at the end of the timer, under a checkered flag, under a normal race end, we do the full 3 hours, that there's 4 points.
It was a red flag. We had hours to make that decision as well.
Hours.
To say, if this happened,
and
I think this is why there is a genuine, again, I hadn't even considered this until we started having this conversation, but I think there's genuine, F1 need to have a good think now because these lessons aren't being learned, basically. No. That's what I'm saying. You can make mistakes, right? Yeah. People make mistakes. And I'm sure this is a much more difficult job than we always give credit for. But there is more than enough resource in place. And I guess Formula One only runs so much of the show as much as it is F1. FIA do take a lot of things, but it seems that just constantly we're talking about it. And it is...
It's constant. I mean, even, that tractor on track.
My goodness.
I mean, that's the next thing, isn't it? That's
we could be here for days discussing one thing after the other, and yet, as you said, Formula One needs to have a discussion with themselves and say, do you know what? This is not on. We cannot allow these people to run this show because they're making our sport actually look terrible. And yet, Formula One has done such a great job in making the sport grow even more.
Yeah, Formula One's done that, not the FIA.
Yeah, Formula One. And it's by the way, your Achilles heel is the FIA. That's the thing that's going to keep dragging you guys down. Yeah. If you're a new Formula One fan last year and you watched how the title was won, I'll be surprised if you're back this year